Oh, don't you hate hitting a pothole big enough to wake up your baby in the back seat? Us too. Here at G&G Paving and Concrete, we have the knowledge and equipment to help prevent potholes from forming in your driveway or your business parking lot. Call us for some preventative maintenance before the snow hits. 244-4298. That's 244-4298. We can patch potholes or crack seal before they become a problem. Here at G&G Paving and Concrete, we take pride in our city. We want Dalhart to drive as beautifully as she looks. G&G Paving and Concrete, a proud supporter of Dalhart ISD and keeping the community in the know.
In the know. To be knowledgeable or having access to information about something. Being privy to special or new information. Or this program on KXIT. It's time now for In the Know. Brought to you by your Dalhart Connection, bringing our community together with new and important information. With your host, Dyke Rogers, and this week's guest, our new Dalhart Superintendent, Mr. Jeff Byrd. Brought to you by G&G Operators.
Welcome to this week's edition of In the Know. I'm your host, Dyke Rogers, and our guest today is Jeff Byrd, new Superintendent of Schools at Dalhart Independent School District. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you all having me.
Jeff, it's an honor to have you here today. Our new programming, In the Know, is to kind of let our community know a little bit more about what's going on in different entities. And we're grateful to G&G Enterprises for sponsoring this program with the school district. And this is our opportunity to kind of know a lot more about what's going on in the Dalhart schools. But first, I think we ought to know a little bit about you. Jeff, why don't you tell us who you are and where you've come from and what you're doing?
I was an oil field brat. I grew up all over West Texas following my father from oil well to oil well. I graduated from Eastland High School in 1989, played baseball and graduated from Tarleton State University in 1993. Coached a couple of years, met my bride, Marlo, and we've been married 27 years. We have a 24-year-old vet student at Texas Tech, Austin. I've got a WT graduate who is now in the IT department at Bruckers Trucking in Amarillo, and then our youngest son, Jake, is 15 years old. Jake is intellectually disabled and absolutely the light of my life and the glue that kind of holds us all together, and he's a freshman this year at Dalhart High School. Dalhart is our 8th school district in over a 30-year period, and sincerely mean this as genuinely as I can possibly say it. Dalhart and the community, we've never been as welcome to a community as we have been welcomed here, and we're excited and proud to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you here. Jeff, why did you decide to come to Dalhart in the beginning?
Well, you know, you'd be surprised how much or how often I've been asked that question, and in 1995, I asked my wife to marry me, and shockingly, she said yes. And the only school district in the state of Texas that had a job for her coaching fields and teaching fields and my coaching fields and teaching fields was in Dumas, Texas. And probably never been happier than those first 4 years in Dumas. The people in Dumas are very similar to the people in Dalhart. We were in Amarillo for 9 years. My second superintendent job was in Claude, and when my oldest son was a senior at Claude, the Vernon position came open, and it was such an overwhelming salary for us. We were able to write checks for our kids to go to college as opposed to huge student loans, so we took that position. And I can't put it into words or really answer that question directly, but this is our home. This is where our family wants to be. And Dalhart's just one of those jobs we circled on the map, and probably the reason that a lot of people chose not to apply for the job is exactly why I did. In my opinion, the Panhandle is 25 years behind the rest of civilization, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. People still treat people with courtesy. They're mannersome. Kids know how to work. Parents have high expectations of parents, and Dalhart was just a spot that we felt like would be a good fit for us, and thankfully the board agreed with us when they interviewed us.
Well, that's terrific. Jeff, when you look at the Dalhart school system, kind of what do you see?
Well, I think in any organization, sometimes you need an outsider's view of things to appreciate what you actually have. In public education in general, perception outweighs reality. And I can't tell you how many people, I had this conversation with you, quite frankly, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. people that are able to come into the classrooms and able to be in our hallways and visit with the students and the administration and the staff, they see how hard our teachers work. They see how well behaved our kids are. They see the knowledge base, that the platform and foundation that our staff's building. And where I'm going with this, you get in a rut in a community and you don't know what you have or you don't know what you don't have. But I'm telling you, I've been in 8 school systems, and we've got an unbelievable administrative team starting in the central office. We've got great principal leadership. We've got 2 new principals and 2 veteran principals to the district. We've got a wonderful staff, and my non-negotiable is every decision we make is going to be based on what's best for kids. And sometimes you find yourself in a school district that makes decisions that are easy for adults. And I can look you in the eye and I can sincerely tell you that we're not doing that, and it wasn't done before I got here. We're going to be as customer friendly as we can. My door will be open 24 hours a day. You're welcome to come in and visit with me. That doesn't mean you're always going to leave with what you want or happy, but I'll hear what you have to say. And our job is to educate kids. They didn't build Dalhart Independent School District so Jeff could be the superintendent here. They built it to educate kids. And there's we're not perfect. There's some things that we need to work on, and one is we need to do a better job of selling our own story.
I would agree with that. I think Dalhart's a great story, and I think it doesn't get told near often enough. Tell me a little bit about, you say you have 2 new principals.
Yes,
where
sir.
did they come from? What's their background?
Well,
and hopefully we'll have a chance to visit with them
absolutely.
in future podcasts.
Well, Dr. Elaine Heyer, her husband works for XIT Communications. She actually finished her doctoral program recently, and about 15 years ago, I was a little skinnier and could still comb my hair. I can't do that any longer, by the way. But Elaine, my first principal job was at Amarillo at Caprock High School, and Dr. Heyer was my counselor. And I was so excited to have the opportunity to work with her again. Great heart for kids, passion for student success. She's a rock star, and we're very blessed to have her. And I had absolutely nothing to do with drawing her here. Her husband obviously was with XIT, and I believe, if I understand correctly, the principal that was previously at the elementary school retired and left in March. And they were able to bring Elaine in to finish the rest of the school year. She just has a great vision for student success. I believe that her staff has really bought into what she's selling, they're buying. And I'm excited, and I can't wait to see what she's able to do there. Chad Blaine was brought to us from Pecos. He's been all over the state. He's probably, I believe he originated as a principal in the Texarkana area, but he comes to Dalhart from Pecos, and he's got well over 10 years successful experience as an elementary principal. They both have that elementary mindset. They're very caring, but they're firm. There's really not major discipline issues here, but we've got, everybody wants accountability till it affects them or their kid. But I'm really excited to work with Chad. I mean, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to Dalhart, but sometimes, for lack of a better term, we're geographically challenged. And for us to be able to bring a guy in with 10 plus years as a successful elementary principal is a blessing. And we're really excited to have both of them, and certainly don't want to leave any of our principals out. I think Stacy Maddox and her staff at the junior high do a phenomenal job, and I'm really proud of the job that Scott Wright and his staff have done at the high school, and I'm extremely fond of Scott's counselor. I've lived with her for 27 years, so she's as happy to be here. And by the way, I think the high school counselor was probably a better hire than the superintendent was.
You know, I some people may agree with that. I'm going to withhold judgment there. Jeff, when you look at our school system, what do you see as our biggest challenge?
Communication. I think that we've got an extremely diverse population here, and we've got to do a better job of meeting every student's needs. And I think one of the things that is a skill set or a strength of mine, and I would be remiss if I didn't brag on the Director of Student Services, Sarah Nutter. Sarah has been with the district 30 years. She absolutely could run this district whether I was here or not. Everything that she does turns to gold. I really appreciate, I'm blessed to have somebody in that position be able to help. So very grateful for her in the central office staff. But I think one of my skill sets, and I think one of the things that Dr. Heyer and that Mr. Blaine will bring differently at our elementary levels is every decision that they make is going to be made in the best interest of the students, but we're all data driven. You know, I'm an old football, baseball coach, and my leadership style is more from a coaching perspective than it would be your typical high school principal or superintendent. Let's look at football as an example, and I know some people don't enjoy sporting analogies, but let's be honest. You don't just show up and play the game on Sunday. You get home from a football game at midnight, you grade your film, you go home, you take a nap, you eat breakfast, you get back to the office by 7, and you create a game plan for success. And great coaches never put kids in positions to not be successful. You can't ask a kid to do something they're physically not capable of doing. Well, we're going to take that same mindset. We're going to use NWA maps, and we're going to build individual success plans for each individual kid. And the mindset is, you know, from a teacher's perspective is, here are our TEKs. Here's where we're at day 1. Here's where we've got to go to day 187. And I understand and I appreciate that. But if you've got a 5th grader that's reading on a 1st grade level, it really doesn't do much good to start that child on a 5th grade level on day 1 of the 5th grade if he's reading at a 1st grade level. You know, you've got to crawl before you walk, and you've got to be able to walk successfully before you run. So every decision I believe that Chad and Dr. Heyer are going to make on those 2 campuses will be data-driven, and we're going to try to create a different game plan. Every kid learns different. Every kid comes in the first day of school on a different level. So we're going to focus on each individual student, and we're going to look and focus on student growth.
That's great. Well, you said you're using MWA maps. What does that mean?
It's NWA. It's just a program where we come in the first of the year and we're able to access. We're doing assessments, and we're going to test the students and see where they're at. We're going to create a game plan from now till mid-year. Then we're going to access them again probably December, January, February. I don't want to fib to you on that, but somewhere in that time frame. Then we'll get the results back and see how much growth we have, and then create a new plan to get us from then to when we have to do state testing towards the end of the year.
This week's In the Know podcast is brought to you by G&G Operators. Does getting ready and preparing for a project stress you out or make you second guess your plans? Stop waiting and pull the trigger. G&G Operators make preparing your site easier than ever before. They have years of experience working with conditions in the area, specialized tools, and equipment that allow all aspects of your project from design to execution go without a hitch. Call today to start your projects. 806-244-4297. G&G Operators is excited to keep you in the know about Dalhart ISD news and updates. That's 806-244-4297.
Well, I notice we have an awful lot of what I'd call migrant population, at least
Yes,
people
sir.
who are new to this area.
Yes, sir.
So what kind of language issues are there, and how do you handle those?
Well, there are some very big challenges, and not only do you look at the language barriers that we have, you know, it's and I've got a little bit of experience with this, and I wish that I had a magic pill and I would have bottled it up, but we haven't solved the riddle yet, whether it be in Vernon or Dalhart. But in Vernon, there's so many similarities to Vernon to Dalhart. You know, we have the XIT in Dalhart. They had the Wagner Ranch in Vernon. We've got the cheese factory here in Dalhart. They've got a bacon rights plant in Vernon. At our pre-K through 1st grade campus in Vernon, we had 68 students 2 years ago that didn't speak English or Spanish. That's amazing. And we have similar situation here. The Karen population in Vernon was our biggest challenge, and here, it as an outsider looking in, and this being my 6th week here, I believe our Guatemalan population will probably be our biggest challenge as far as ESL is concerned, and English language first students. And not only are we having the challenge with the Guatemalan population, but these migrant workers come in and work the fields during the season, and as soon as the season's over, they may leave and go somewhere else. Does that make sense? So we've got a short amount of time to help those students. And if they're here on the snapshot date, regardless of if they're in Dalhart until November the 1st, but the snapshot date was October the 31st, they may move to Uvalde, but we're still responsible for them when they test at the end of the year. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. It does. It may be the way it is, but
Yes,
it sure
sir.
seems difficult to be accountable for that.
It is a challenge, for sure. But we're not going to make excuses. If those kids are here 35 days, we're going to work as hard as we can with them and love on them and wish them the very best when they leave.
Great. Well, one of the things that I think we've watched as a nation over the last couple of years is how school systems handle COVID and how they've approached that, and some of the distance learning and all of the challenges with teachers' unions and seemed like there was more politics in school than there was education. And I'm glad to say that here I think it was more education than politics. And I'm real proud of the teachers that we have. But could you kind of address what's happened as people have come back from COVID, at least what you can see in the 6 weeks here and where we are? I understand that across the country there's been a lot of loss in learning. What are you seeing here, or are you in a position to assess that yet?
Well, I see the same things here I saw in Vernon. I see the same things here that other superintendents from other districts in the Vernon area and the Amarillo and the Dalhart area have all seen. I believe that our commissioner envisioned that we were ready for remote instruction, and we failed miserably. The state of Texas and public education was not set up for success. And again, you're making decisions at the speed of light, trying to do what's best for students immediately. That was a challenge. Our kids were not ready for remote instruction. Our parents were not ready for remote instruction. Students failed miserably from a social standpoint. I mean, I'm 51 years old and couldn't fathom being locked up in a house. I was considered no different than a doctor. I got up every morning at 5:30 and I went to work, and I stayed there till my work was done. But again, there's no way I could have stayed at home every day from March until the end of school that year. Socially, kids suffered. There's been an increase in depression across our country, and everybody looks to that first year of COVID as the most challenging year. That wasn't the most challenging year. The most challenging year was the 2021 school year, when we came back, and right before school started, the commissioner mandated that everybody is going to have remote instruction across the board, and you're also going to have to offer education in person, face to face, if that's what the parents and children want. And we had an astronomical list of demands where if was I exposed, was an at-risk, high-risk exposure, was I low-risk exposure. Those kids went well over 24 months without a normal school year. I can't fathom having to learn in that environment with that amount of tension and frustration. And that first year when we came back in 2021, if you really want to know why there's a shortage of teachers, there's multiple reasons. COVID primarily is one of them. We ask our teachers to come to work and be at school at 7:30 in the morning, teach 7 periods a day. After school at 3:30 to 5, we wanted them to focus on the next day's lessons and to have everything organized. They went home, they cooked meals for their family, they had dinners with their family, and then they stayed up from 7:30 to midnight trying to assist the students that were remote instruction students. How much more money did we pay those teachers for doing double the work?
I suspect very little.
None. We nothing. So we asked them to do double the work. From a mental standpoint and an exhaustion standpoint, we overwhelmed our staffs.